I am a proud graduate of Barringer High School, Newark, New Jersey, class of 2011, and currently attending Essex County College. Barringer 9th Grade Success Academy was designed to smooth the transition from middle school to high school by giving students the attention needed during this critical time. Students become better familiar with the high school curriculum and mature in the process. At the close of the 2011 school year, Barringer 9th Grade Success Academy was closed, leaving many students to move to the main campus with an already dense population of 1,400 students. Many of the 9th grade students aren't prepared for the discipline of high school, taking their focus from their studies to one acceptance from the upperclassmen. Results from a study done by Boston College shows that overall, the isolation of 9th graders in a separate building, wing, or floor eases the transition to high school. 9th grade students benefit by building relationship with their peers in the same grade, as students, teachers, and administrators reported few concerns of bullying by older students. Concerning education, Kofi Annan once said, education is a human right with immense power to transform. On its foundation rest the cornerstones of freedom, democracy, and a sustainable human development. Separating 9th graders from the general high school is crucial to the development of their continued success. To become the students, they are able to build a stronger foundation of how to behave in a high school setting in order to transform into a scholar. Without a great foundation, 9th graders enter high school and are subjected to distraction and easily influenced by the upperclassmen. In North, many students have neither a positive role model nor family that will steer them into a positive direction. Placing these students who are so young and naive in an environment of 1,400 plus students may result into disaster if the student isn't autonomous in his studies. My experience at the 9th Grade Success Academy positively shaped my overall high school career. It afforded myself and others the opportunity to grow, buckle down, and prepare for the long road ahead. I come here today to share my success stories, to tell you that I am one of the last lucky few. The doors to the 9th Grade Academy closed for good the year I graduated, and there are many eager minds who will never again share that experience. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Julianne M. Robertson King, and I'm an attorney in private practice here in Washington, D.C. I'm the mother of 4 children, one of whom is a student at Phelps Senior High. I'm the chair of the local school advisory team at Phelps, and I'm a product of D.C. Public Schools. I want to start off just by thanking Empower DC and everyone who came from so far away this afternoon. It really says a lot that we can come here together and work for a common good. I have to admit that I'm very hurt and disappointed that Secretary Duncan did not see fit to pay respect to where respect is due in this situation.
Yes, ma'am, that's right.
So I want to talk for a moment about what's happening in Washington, D.C. We're experiencing an educational holocaust. We have thousands of bright, brilliant, beautiful students who are being displaced where they should be loved and nurtured. Every student in the District of Columbia has a right to a school experience that embraces their needs, their interests, and their gifts. We have the means to provide superior educational outcomes for our children, but the privatization movement threatens to divest thousands of poor and low-income children of color of their claim of right to a quality education. In D.C., 46,000 children live in areas of high poverty. Assets and opportunities that promote well-being are not being invested in our children. 1/3 of D.C. children under the age of 18 live in 6 neighborhood clusters: Deanwood, Capitol View, Union Station, Columbia Heights, Brightwood, and Congress Heights. These neighborhoods are segregated as to class and race. Closing schools in these neighborhoods subjects these children, who are already vulnerable, to even greater hardship. I've got to tell you a story, a personal story, something that happened to me. I used to live in an extremely dangerous neighborhood. And one morning, I was walking to my house, and I normally just navigate through drug abusers, drug dealers, poor people, suffering people, without making eye contact. But on one morning, something drew my attention to the left, and I saw a little boy crying, and I was scared. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I'm lost, and I don't know how to get to my school." I pulled out my phone, we called his mother, I identified myself, and I said, "Mom, if it's okay with you, we're going to hop in a cab and we're going to go to school." The Spirit blessed us, and a cab came right away. So the mother stayed on the phone with me as we were going to his school. Turns out he was roughly 8 blocks off of his course, and his mother explained to me that his neighborhood school had closed. The first day of school, he walked with some friends. The second day of school, he was late and had to go by himself. Now, many of you are parents.
Yes.
I want you to know that if one of my children was put in danger because their neighborhood school was closed, there would be no force in heaven or hell that would keep me from trying to address that wrong. And so what I ask of all of the members of the department who are here today, please take each and every one of these children who are affected by school closures as your own children.
Right.
And I ask you, with the greatest degree of respect and admiration, to please have the compassion that is due to each of our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And do we have a representative for Baltimore? All right, let's move on to Boston. Mr. Rios, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Carlos Rios. I am a youth organizer in the Boston area Youth Organizing Project. In the past 2 years, BYOP along with other Boston orgs have been working together to target and stop the redesign and reinvest plan made by Superintendent Carol Johnson, which, by the way, was approved by the Boston School Committee in December 15, 2010. The plan, intended to provide closure and merger and expansions of schools, also mostly targeted and discriminated against Black, Latino, and or national origin minority students and their parents. Neighborhoods like Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan, which is predominantly people of color, are the schools targeted for closings. While schools in West Roxbury, Rosendale, and Brighton, which is predominantly white students, remain unaffected. Schools like Hyde Park Complex have shut down, making students cramp up into new classrooms, making teachers work with large classes and unspeakable work. It's become so crowded, some classes are taking place in auditoriums and in the hallways. The plan also states that schools that already get funding and have more white students will get more funds and renovations, as opposed by low-funded schools, which is mostly students of color, who will just be relocated to equal-funded schools or less-funded schools instead. Finally, the district does not accommodate the programmatic needs of English language learners or provide a special education for them. In conclusion, the current setup disregards students of colors, family of colors, and their rights to an education. Thank you.
Looks like we did not have a representative from Mississippi. Let's go to Atlanta.
Okay. Peace and blessings, people. Okay. I'm gonna get to that. I'm sorry. No education. No. Education is liberation. On this day of January 29th, we demand a moratorium on school closures. I am Niquay Douglas, an education justice organizer at Project South, here with the youth leaders of YCAP, and I'm one of the thousands of hundreds of voices, of unheard voices of students, youth, parents, faculty, staff, and schools in Atlanta. Students are the most affected, but not involved in decision makings in closing our schools. Decisions are being made and will continue to be made without the interests and principles of the community affected in mind. Students' input is imperative to create a 21st century vision and plan for just public education now and generations to come. Students are the past, present, but most importantly, the future of public education. No students, no public schools. In the year of 2012, 5 elementary schools were closed. All schools being closed were in historical black poor neighborhoods in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia. Family school traditions are being broken. Major public housing demolition across the city displaced tens of thousands of people, which if you do the math, Atlanta Public School seats 60,000 students, 47,000 enrolled students. 13, if you do the math, between 60,000 and 47,000, that 13,000 of those students are displaced students from that community. By law, all Georgia students who live within a mile of their school are not required public school bus services. Now, all parents don't have a means of transportation, and students are not in the safest communities to walk a mile. Public schools are an asset and play a major role in our communities. By privatizing one of our public hospitals, Grady, students depend on school clinics, which no longer exist in public schools. Therefore, students' health are at risk. As students and youth, we deserve rights. National Student Bill of Rights. We demand a moratorium on school closures now. Education is liberation. No education, no life.
Those requests, and so I'd like to bring them up now to join us at these tables. I apologize for the temperature in here.
It's cool. It's hot. It's cool. It's cool. We're going to bring the heat. We're going to bring the heat. We're here for to bring the heat.
These folks will have 3 minutes each, just like the last segment. Our timekeepers, Tremaine and Kathy, will let them know when they have chair one rest. We have additional chairs over here, folks. Feel free to take a seat here. Let's begin with a discussion of school transformation that's sustainable with Ms. Capers from New York.
First and foremost, I am a proud parent of 2 boys from Pierce IS 298 in District 23 from Brownsville, Brooklyn. I am currently the Parent Association President, School Leadership Chair, and a very proud alumnus. I am also a parent leader with the New York City Coalition of Educational Justice and Alliance for Quality Education. I became involved in my local school closure fight when my children's school was placed on the chopping block. After fighting, we were not closed, but we were truncated. Our middle school grades are being phased out, and so is our budget. Money that has been promised us has yet to be delivered, and students are the ones who suffer. We currently have a library space, but no librarian or books to fill the shelves. We also do not have a computer lab. We recently got rid of first-generation Mac computers that were taking up space, collecting dust, and no longer worked or could be repaired or updated. Today, you have heard a lot about the effects of school closures as an educational policy and parental buy-in. Our policy calls for local school transformation teams comprised of parents, students, community members, school staff with the power to design and implement a reform plan and support the state, with support from the state and local governments. We all know, we all want to close the achievement gap, but how do we do it? It is done with a focus on research-based strategy, strong college and career-ready curriculum, a collaborative environment for high-quality teaching, and a positive climate for student learning. We call for the use of data to inform and differentiate instruction and the use of research-based strategies. Lastly, no student can live up to their full potential when they are hungry, when their parents aren't able to support them at home, or when they feel unsafe and disrespected at school. This is why wraparound services are critical. An assessment process to identify students' non-academic needs, and asset mapping to determine the possible providers. Trust me, today the historical significance is not lost upon me in this poignant moment. I feel the weight of a generation on my shoulders.
All right.
I cannot and I will not let a single one of them down, and neither shall any of you.
All right, hey.
In the State of the Union in 1963, President John F. Kennedy said, "A child miseducated is a child lost." We have already lost a generation of children.
Right.
How many more must be lost before we as adults do what's the best for all of our children? Mr. Rodriguez, please do not come with a spirit of appreciation, but come with a fire to change the injustice that is occurring in our schools, in our cities, in our states, in our communities. A child miseducated is a child lost. Don't lose my children.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Capers.
Yeah.
Thank you for representing New York.
Now let's talk about civil rights. You have a statement.
Yeah.
First off, I'd like to thank First off, I'd like to thank New York Communities for Change for helping us organize this and journey for justice, and to all my new friends that I met here. And it's just been really enlightening being here. I just feel so proud to be here with you. My name is Tyron Francisco. I am a proud president of Men of Purpose in Brownsville Academy High School. I am captain of the art club. I am an ambassador in the college office. I help students get online, apply to colleges, and get a valid interest in college. There have been 6 Title VI complaints filed with Office of Civil Rights. Newark, DC, Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, and more Title VI complaints are on the way. Not only have we filed, but as you heard from some places like Philadelphia and Newark, are proud to say that the Office of Civil Rights has agreed to investigate New York City's complaint too. Mayor Bloomberg has not been accountable for what is happening in our schools. Unfortunately, decades later, the only way to set justice is to file a lawsuit.
Right.
We matter. And listening to everybody's opinion, and I don't know what they were doing, and half of them were just leaving out, and I felt disrespected.
That's right.
I was forced to give a tour to the people who came in to take our school. Instead of asking about the quality of work and what goes on in our school, they'll say, "Oh, how much space do we have? How many stairwells can we split down the middle for these children?" Right in front of our faces.
Yes.
I felt totally and utterly disrespected.
Yes.
And the DOE is to blame. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior. I'm supposed to be studying and just getting prepared for college life. But
Right.
I'm here now to tell you that this is wrong. It's an injustice to all of us. Undemocratic. It truly is.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Oh, are you co-presenting? Okay.
National Student Bill of Right number 1.
The right to free public education
the right to free public education. My name is Saida Washington. I'm a community organizer with Youth United for Change, a community organization, youth-led, that fights for educational justice back in Philadelphia. I'm here with our national alliance, the Alliance for Educational Justice, on a journey for justice. And this is?
Hello, my name is Christopher Cordero. I am a member of the Push Out chapter of YUC. I am a student who has been pushed out of school. Okay, start back from the beginning. Hello, my name is Christopher Cordero. I am a member of a Push Out chapter of YUC. I am a student who has been pushed out of school and currently seeking enrollment at an accelerated school or an alternative program. I've joined YUC because I don't want to be a statistic that I can't brag about. I want to be somebody that matters in life. A high school graduate, a college graduate, a business owner, and more importantly, a better parent and provider for my children. Not only am I here on behalf of myself and my kids, but I'm here for the future of America.
So first and foremost, I would like to say that heart, mind, and circumstance is how we justify the decisions that we make as people. So with that being said, I must remind you, elected officials, appointed officials, staffers, please take note. You represent the voice of the people. And you are supposed to do it in the most ethical way possible. Today, we would like to talk about collateral damage. Collateral damage is damage to things that are incidental to the intended target. It is frequently used as a military term. It can refer to the incidental destruction of civilian property and non-combatant casualties. So people, tell me how in the land of the free, America, the education war has never ended. Chris, tell me what you know about the history of education.
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I know at some point in time, black people couldn't go to school with white people, and people like Martin Luther King fought for those. The Philadelphia School Reform Commission wants to close 37 schools, which will displace over 7,000 students. The school closing will only save 1% of their budget.
Not only will it save 1% of their budget, but it will destroy the Strawberry Mansion community. Strawberry Mansion is a community that serves, I'll say it, all black people. There are no white people in North Philadelphia. In Strawberry Mansion, they want to close that school. There are no more high schools within 2 miles of that school. So tell me, what happens to those students? School desert. No schools. This past Thursday, January 24th, 2013, our city council voted on a resolution in favor of a 1-year moratorium until a community study, impact study, is conducted. That's awesome. And though we all know, as we know that you all don't, city council has no right to impose a moratorium. However, it is a symbolic representation of the people's voice. And it shows true governance of Philadelphia's people. So we ask you, officials of the United States of America, Department of Education, who are you accountable to if not us?
Help us invest in the future of America by recognizing the youth of America are not collateral damage.
Yeah. So we ask you guys to support us in calling for a national moratorium on school closings, because right now we are at war. When they say cut back, we say fight back. Cut back, fight back. Cut back, fight back. Cut back, fight back. We will not lay down.
Our Office for Civil Rights, our Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, our Office of Innovation and Improvement, our Office of Communications and Outreach, our Office of Policy, our Teaching Ambassador Fellows, teachers who join us in the classroom to advise us, our Office of the Secretary, our Office of the General Counsel. We have tremendous representation here today, and folks have been listening and scribbling frankly. We will bring up a few folks to try and address some of what you have brought up. A lot of issues have been put out on the table in these last 2 hours. We will not be able to address them one by one. We will not be able to tell you exactly what you want to hear in all cases. We will do our best, and we will continue the conversation. You have our commitment on that. Transform communities, be the center of community, has been mentioned so many times today, and use evidence and research base to figure out the best ways to do that. Ms. Deb Delisle is our Assistant Secretary for Elementary and Secondary Education, the office that oversees Title I, the office that oversees the School Improvement Grant Program that's been mentioned a few times today, as well as other programs important to K-12 education. And finally, Reverend Brenda Gurton Mitchell, who directs our Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, who has met with members of your, I will turn it over to Seth now. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Yes. No? All right. You got something good to say now. How about now? All right. Well, I think that's a good sign that I had to take a moment there because I heard a lot of real eloquent speeches, a lot of really moving testimony, and I'm not going to be able to compare to that, but I'm going to try and tell you what I know, and I hope that some of it you'll like, and at least you'll know that we've been listening to what you're saying. As you know, I'm from the Office for Civil Rights. We've gotten some complaints about school closings, and I'm going to talk to you about that. But first, I just want to say that we know, we Office for Civil Rights, Department of Education, we know that race discrimination still exists in the United States. So we take it very seriously when people come to us and say that they're being discriminated against in their public schools. This administration and department have maintained an intense focus on civil rights over the past 4 years. We've worked hard in communities around the country to eliminate discriminatory discipline practices and to address access to comparable resources, including access to college and career-ready prep courses for students of color. And this is true, and the same is going to be true of school closings. We understand that they can be deeply affect and sometimes even destabilize students, families, and communities. This doesn't mean that every school closing is going to be a civil rights violation, but I want to recognize that there's a lot at stake when a school's doors are closed. And I had a whole page here about process, but I'm just going to skip over that and tell you that all of you have heard that OCR has opened complaints involving Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, and Newark. Now, we haven't opened all of them all the way. There are some timeliness issues. There are some issues that are being litigated in court, and we're not going to second-guess courts. But we have opened parts of the complaints in all those cities. And when we look at these things, I need to emphasize, as most of you know, we cannot deal with every harmful decision that happens, but only those that are violating the civil rights laws. Sometimes people are going to be negatively affected by a decision, a group may be, but that doesn't mean it's going to constitute illegal discrimination. State and local governments are dealing with a lot here, dealing with student achievement, declining enrollment, shrinking budgets, old buildings. The question we're asking when we go to these communities is whether a school district made its decision with the intent to discriminate, or whether the decisions have illegal discriminatory effects on students of color. In investigating these complaints, we're not only going to examine the decision to close schools, but the decision about which schools to close, where the students are being reassigned from these closed schools, how these decisions are being implemented, and the effects on the students. This process is not going to move quickly, and it's certainly not going to move as quickly as you'd like. These are very fact-intensive inquiries, and there are going to be a lot of factors beyond our control that may slow things down. I cannot tell you how long it's going to take, but we are committed to making resolution of these cases a priority. I want to thank you for coming again and sharing these stories. I know that we agree, as Secretary Duncan said, that we're all have the same goal, high quality schools for our children. Achieving that goal requires your school district to respect the civil rights of all students, and OCR is going to work with you to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jim Shelton.
Not a lot of confidence, Mr. Galante. We've given you definitive information. Not a lot of confidence. That was a weak presentation.
Good afternoon.
With respect. With respect.
So I jotted down my talking points, but yeah. So first, let me say it's my honor and my privilege actually to speak to you today. My name is Jim Shelton. I run the Office of Innovation Improvement. I'm born and raised here in D.C. I'm born and raised here in D.C. I'm born and raised in Southeast D.C., which is the part of the D.C. where the vast majority of the schools that we're talking about are right now. The reality is that the reason that we are all here today, well, first let me tell you why I'm honored. The Secretary talked about a unique thing about D.C., and you must be from D.C., so you know. Oftentimes, D.C. has a lot of people who show up at protests. A lot of people who show up at protests. D.C. has a lot of people who show up at protests. And if you were from the neighborhood, sometimes you go to those protests and you say, where have you been? Where were you when it was really going down? And where will you be when the work starts? It is my honor and privilege to be with you today because I can tell the difference between soldiers and show people. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, sir.
The second thing I want to do, I want to spend my time talking about the things that we should be working together on. Okay, because what we agree on is that our kids deserve the best. Yes. What we agree on is that it has been bad for too long. Yes. What we agree on is that it needs to get better much more quickly than it ever has before.
Yes, yes sir.
That we can agree on. The interesting thing is that when you lay out the framework for what you want to see happen, we also agree on much of that as well. When you talk about community involvement and you really look at what we have said about how communities and states and districts should be going about the work of turnaround in schools, it calls very specifically, and Dr. DeLau can talk about this, for an engagement of community. It talks very specifically for this president. Everybody knows the name Race to the Top. Wait a second. When you looked at school improvement grant, does anybody know that the amount of money that was put in the school improvement grant the first time was $4 billion? Equal to the amount. Wait. Of those 1,300 schools that received fundings, how many of those schools closed as opposed to trying something different?
Good question.
18 schools went to closure. So here's what I want to tell you, and this is why it's really important. An unprecedented investment went into turning around schools in this country. We can put out a framework for how that happens. How it translates on the ground is somewhere between what we put out as a framework and what gets decided before it hits the ground. That is where the tension exists. And which is why you are here.
Right.
So we can agree on that. We can agree on that these resources are important to getting it done. The question is what happens with them. So you laid out several other parts to how it needs to be done. You talked about using research-based practices. Okay. So, one of the secondary programs that came out of the Recovery Act when the president came in, there were several programs put out. One of them was called the Invest in Innovation Fund.
Yeah.
It was the first program in the history of the Department of Education that made evidence the criteria by which you would be most rigorously judged in order to decide whether or not you could put forward your strategy. If you had a little bit of evidence, you got a little bit of money, which wasn't that little. But if you had a lot of evidence, you could have gotten up to $50 million. Last year, $25 million. And so programs that have evidence that they work have the ability to get funded. The question is, once we demonstrate and identify those programs, who chooses to use them? These are the things that you as a community have the power and the voice to know about, to point to, and then ask for as you approach the communities. That's why we're here. Right. That's why we're here. I understand. I understand. Third thing, the importance of social supports, especially in our communities where our children come to school impacted by poverty. So people may remember when President Obama was then candidate Obama, and he came up with a program called the Promised Neighborhoods Program. Does anybody know what that is? It's modeled off the Harlem Children's Zone. It says that our students need a cradle to college and career supports, that we need to bring the services and start with community-based organizations to bring it all together. I know I'm taking extra time, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think you've had most of my talk.
We recognize the importance of that kind of a model and the need not only to demonstrate through programs like Promise, but to work across agencies. We are trying to do that. It takes time to learn how to do it, and it takes time to learn how to break down those silos. The second thing is that the way it's going to have to work is we can lay out a framework, but again, it has to translate all the way through to the local level. Right. So the question is, once we create these demonstration grant programs like Promise, and we show how it actually can be done, the question is, how will they then be taken to scale across cities and communities so that they can actually impact all of our children, not just some? What you are calling for is the thing that I'm trying to point out is many of the things that you're calling for, they are small parts of them already in place. The question is, how do we take them and have them impact all or most of the children? That is where we have to work together. In the meantime, we know that, as Seth said, we are pushing hard on the system to say change fast, produce better outcomes for our children. That there are many things that we're doing and that communities are deciding to do that are having a negative impact. Right, that's true. Fully recognize that that's the case. This kind of dialogue, which we are fully committed to, is the way we will continue to try and change the way we think about our work, but also on the ground, how we need to help, you need to help us inform the work of the field. As long as the conversations are like this, if you come to the table, tell your story, have solutions, and we can respond, we can make dramatic progress in a relatively short period of time. If we revert to the world that the Secretary described, where we are on both sides and people just talk louder, we will not get there. We have the pieces that we can actually build upon. The question is, how do we take it to scale quickly? You heard, you have talked today about this being the beginning of a movement. Right. And what I want to say is, movement is about moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It means we need to learn, but we do need to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So I want to ask that question of you today, recognizing that you have your agenda laid out. How do we make improvement, keep moving forward, keep making things better for our children very quickly, and do that together?
Folks, thank you. I ask for your respect for the speakers as we try and cover a lot of issues that you brought up. Deb.
Thank you so much.
Folks, hey, we signed a bargain when we came in, right? We've agreed to respect everyone who's speaking. and I've appreciated that so far. Let's give Dr. Delisle an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I won't be long because I think, Jim, that you've covered a lot of the issues that I've been ready to share. One of the things that's really important to know is that I've been in the education field for 37 years, and 34 years of that time has been spent in urban centers. I know full well the situations you are facing. I am proud of the fact that I've advocated for students of color, students with disabilities, students of poverty, all of my career. In the last setting in which I was a school superintendent, 94.5% of our African American males graduated in 4 years, and 82% of our kids went on to colleges and universities. And I know the complexity of that work. As the head of the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, we cover a whole host of programs that deal with many of your children, from Title I services, helping them with literacy and numeracy, the School Improvement Grant Program, and most especially and most recently, the flexibility that has been offered through the waiver program for the ESEA waiver flexibility. Your voices today are really important. I will emphasize to you that I've taken copious notes. We will be working through in my office in our program areas to see how we can best implement the ideas that you have brought to us, most especially on your sustainable success model. I will tell you on the forefront, and I'm speaking for me, many of the components of the sustainable school model, as Jim Shelton indicated, we are in agreement with. We believe in collaboration. We believe in the needs assessment. We believe in the need to have research-based instruction. In fact, we are creating a whole technical support system to ensure that not just a couple of schools understand how to implement research-based practices, but that it's brought to scale across the country. We believe in using data to inform instruction. We believe in using evaluation systems that just don't focus on one measure, but use multiple measures. But most especially what I'm keenly interested in, what I've spent a lot of my career on, is understanding the need for children and families, not just kids who come to school, but children and families to have wraparound support services that promote their success in schools. Jim mentioned the investment we've made in programs such as Promise Neighborhoods. And you know, if you know me at all, if you get to know me at all, you'd understand I'm a really impatient person. So it's really hard for me to wait for scale up, but I also understand the need to figure out how do you fund the programs, how do we bring them into neighborhoods, how do we build the capacity that is needed for everybody to have a voice in that creation of the Promise Neighborhood programs. Also, the need to provide counseling and support. In the schools in which I've worked, most of the kids were first college generation kids. I was a first generation college kid. So we understand how to navigate the system, which is not really an easy kind of thing to do. We've been meeting with several experts to figure out how to best identify and incorporate those non-academic measures, understanding what kids bring into the learning situation, not just the book learning that kids do. So we will be providing our policy office with recommendations based on what we've learned today, as well as all of the notes that I've taken from you, and I know from many of the pieces that have come into our office. I would encourage you highly to understand in your states what flexibility has brought to your state. They're up on websites. I'm sure some of your community organizers can help you to access them. We will help you to access what that means. Because what's most important about that, and what I appreciate about the flexibility, is that student scores can no longer be masked. They can't be hidden. We're going to know what your students are doing. We're going to know what all of our students are doing in each of the subgroups, whether students with disabilities, students living in poverty, students in color, so that communities, whether they are in the poorest of neighborhood or even in suburbs where kids aren't achieving, we can see what kids are doing, and now we have a lever to actually hold states accountable for that work. We know that that can be done. You've shared your sustainable success model, and I mentioned to you that many of the components, we are in agreement with that. And we will be looking to see how that can infiltrate all of the programs in the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. And I'm going to yield my time over to Brenda. What's your name? Deb Delisle.
No accountability right now.
Let's turn to Reverend Gordon Mitchell.
I don't have a lot of voice, and so you really won't have to hear a lot from me this afternoon, but I did find it an honor to be invited on behalf of the Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships to be here to witness what I think Dr. King would celebrate. That you have not allowed a big problem to silence you. And you have come to share your courage, your conviction, your commitment with us. And we're listening with an ear to find ways to go forward with you. Many of you, some of you, we've met in the field as we represented the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. And today is our move on the journey for justice with you to advance this cause for children even further. I'm a former elementary school teacher. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm a lifelong learner. And every time we hear your voices in community, we learn something else about how to do better and how to do more to progress together. So my prayer is that you won't be silent, that you will continue to fight together for the progress, that you'll accept us as partners on the journey with you, and that you will continue to honor Dr. King's vision, that even though some things will frustrate us and seem like that mountain of despair, that each of you should see yourselves as part of the stone of hope, that each of you is doing something to make sure life gets better. Each of you is working to make sure young people will feel that they have access to education. That these problems won't stop us from going forward together. And if I'm welcome, I want to just demonstrate in a tangible way that we're on the journey with you, even as you go for the visual today, to say we will stand with you, we will walk with you, we will work with you, we'll hear the criticisms, we'll come up with solutions together, and we'll come to your communities when we're welcome to do that, and stand and speak and preach and talk and act so that no children will feel that they've been lost or left out. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here today and have the courage to speak of your convictions. God bless you.
Thank you.
As we move into the incoming of Black History Month, as we go out of honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, as we know the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, as we just inaugurated our president, Barack Obama. That's right. This is our moment. Yes. We traveled hundreds of miles to get here. Yes. We will not be told when, how, and what to do. We define that because we know no education, no what?
No education, no life.
We're going to fight for our what?
We're going to fight for our rights.
No more. No more. Enough is enough, and we're sick and tired.
Yes.
Sick and tired. Yes. Today we draw the line. Today we move forward.
150 years since the emancipation. This year. 150. Keep that in your books while you're at it. We're just getting here.
So what we want to make sure we understand is that regardless of what the results of the investigations are by the Office of Civil Rights of the U.S. Department of Education, we know and we are clear that the civil rights of our young people are violated every day. Every day. That's right. And what we would demand through our work, not through our conversation, through our sweat, what we would demand is that our children and our communities are respected. Our children deserve to stand on our shoulders, not to be buried in policy that considers them less because of the color of their skin. Whose school? Our school. 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 No education, no what? No education, no life. We're going to fight for our what? We're going to fight for our rights. No education, no what? No education, no life. We're going to fight for our what? We're going to fight for our rights. This is just the beginning. 22 cities and counting. Next time we come back, we're going to have 3/4 of the United States with us.